What does it mean to be your future self? This week, I'm going to dig into a book by Dr. Benjamin Hardy that he recently put out and how it applies to every damn day. Thank you so much for coming back for another week of the Every Damn Week podcast. My name is John Kirby, and this week, as I mentioned at the beginning, we're going to talk about a book that was recently put out earlier this year by Dr. Benjamin Hardy called Be Your Future Self Now. If you don't know who Dr. Benjamin Hardy is, he was and probably still is the most successful blogger on medium.com. Over 100 million people have read various blogs that he's put out over the years on that platform. And since then, he's moved on to write a bunch of books. Some of them you may have read, called Willpower Doesn't Work, Personality Isn't Permanent, and two with Dan Sullivan called The Gap in the Gain and Who Not How. And as a matter of fact, I've reviewed a couple of these books out on my YouTube channel. Go out there and take a look. You'll see what I have to say about those. And I've read all of these books, and they're all fantastic. But I think that Be Your Future Self Now is probably an essential read as part of every damn day living. We focus on everyday progress, and that everyday progress that we do is to help us to achieve our future self, what we see in our heads of ourselves in the future. And the idea of the book is to live that now instead of just thinking I'm going to get there. Put your mental state there now. Live it now. And I want to get into a few portions of the book. He breaks down the book into three parts. The first part, he identifies the 7 threats to your future self. And then he also identifies the 7 truths about your future self. And then the final section is 7 steps to being your future self. Now, he starts off the book with an interesting story about Jimmy Donaldson. Those of you who know who Jimmy Donaldson is, that is Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast, back in 2015, created 4 time capsule videos, one at 6 months after he had created it, another one 12 months later, another one to come out, and all these were supposed to be released, by the way, in that sequence. So 6 months down the road, then 12 months down the road, and then the third one was supposed to be 5 years down the road, and then the fourth one 10 years down the road. He scheduled these out, and what he had his goals set out for his YouTube channel, and he specified his first 6-month goal was to have 15,000 subs. He was at 8,000 subs at the time. Well, he achieved that. We don't know what the exact number is going back, but he had achieved that apparently. His 12-month goal was to actually get 50,000 subscribers. And at the time, he thought that was crazy. Well, he actually surpassed that, and he got 200,000 subscribers. Now, back in 2020, he had a goal that when that video was released, the goal was 1 million subscribers. And he felt that if he didn't have that after 5 years, then he was a failure at this. His actual number was 40 million. So he had big ideas for his future self, for what he saw in his future self, and he surpassed them. In fact, if you've been paying attention to Mr. Beast, he just surpassed 100 million subscribers this past, I think about a month or two ago. And what's interesting is we haven't seen his 10-year projection of himself from 2015. That doesn't come out until 2025. So kind of wonder what he was envisioning himself being. I wonder if 100 million was even close to what he was thinking at that point in time. I'm kind of excited to see that. Ben Hardy in the book dives into, as I mentioned, our threats to our future selves. And I don't want to go into all 7 of them, but I want to cover just a few that I thought were very appropriate for us to discuss today. So the first one, excuse me, is without hope in your future, your present loses meaning. And the example he shares is of Viktor Frankl. And those of you who know who Viktor Frankl is, he was in the concentration camps in Germany during World War II. And while there, his family was killed. His manuscript to his book was taken from him while he was there. He had snuck it in and somebody found it and they took it from him. And while he was there, he made a point to kind of, he studied mental conditions, and he paid attention to a lot of the other inmates that were in the prisons. And what he found was when these people in the camps lost hope, lost all hope, that's when they died. That's when they just lost all will to live at that point. When you lose your hope gives you nothing to live for. And that's what he was coming out with in his book. Hope gives us the fuel to become better and to progress into our future selves. Without hope, our future selves will not happen. The second one he shares is being disconnected from your future self leads to myopic decisions. Most people, when they think about their future selves, they think of themselves as they are today. And what they don't realize is that you're not the same person that you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago. But the other things we need to keep in mind is what we invest in ourselves today is what will help us to grow into that future self we want to become. One of the things I've learned from the book, as well as from myself, is short-term rewards cloud the vision of our future selves. It's long-term reward focus that will make our future happen. So, for example, I think about for myself, it's so easy to pick up the phone and check social media or just read a quick news article, quick dopamine release, because it's what I'm looking for. And it's very common for all of us. We are looking for just a quick release and a quick escape from whatever we're doing. Those short-term rewards get in the way of us trying to reach our future selves. What we should be doing is setting longer-term rewards, like maybe at the end of the day or after a longer period, more hours, or even at the end of the week, we're gonna have this reward for ourselves, or a big reward for ourselves in a year, 5 years, 10 years. This is how we help ourselves to move forward. We gotta dangle the carrot for ourselves. We have to dangle something out there to bring us forward to that future self we want to be. The other thing that he mentions is not being in the arena is failing by default. And he gives the example of Tom Brady. Love him or hate him, Tom Brady is the greatest of all time. There's just really no questioning that after 7 Super Bowls. But Tom Brady clearly has always had doubters and critics all through his career. Many have said he'll never be a great quarterback. Kind of hard to say that now. They say he's not athletic, or now what they'll say is he's too old to play. But the thing is, all these people, all these naysayers, all these individuals, they're all on the sidelines. A lot of them are on the sidelines. People are criticizing him, and when you continue to criticize people from the sidelines, you fail by default because you're not putting yourself on the field. If you think you can do better, do better. Don't criticize. Get out there and do it. We progress by doing. Being active, not by sitting around in an armchair, quarterbacking whoever's out on the field. We have to be active and engaged in the arena to be able to progress. Sitting around waiting for our future selves to happen isn't going to work. It's not going to happen. Criticizing other people and pointing out their failures doesn't help either. So he then gets into those 7 truths of our future self that I had mentioned earlier. So, for example, your future drives your present is something that he shares. I'm only going to cover 3 of these, by the way. The question that he asks is, do you believe life is random, or can it be designed? Every behavior, even if small and mostly subconscious, is for an end. When we go through life, without setting goals for ourselves, then we're wandering aimlessly in the woods. There's no point. We have to set specific, and I say specific, goals that are vital to becoming our future selves. Like, for example, I have a specific goal that I want to put out my book next year. So I have a goal to release my book somewhere in Q1 of 2023. And then I have another goal for myself that somewhere in 2023, I want to be on stage with a speaking engagement talking about my book. Those are specific goals for my future self. And those are the two things that will drive me to be my future self. And so in my mind, I'm thinking that I've already done that. It's already happened. So for me, I am living my future self in my head now. And by doing that I've already finished my book. I've already been up on stage. So those goals have happened in my mind. As long as I'm thinking that way, I can progress, and I'm being my future self now. Your future self is different than you expect. As I mentioned earlier, people tend to assume that who we are right now, for the most part, is the finished version of ourselves. And that is simply not true. What is true is that we have to imagine ourselves as greater than we are. Because I know for a fact, I am not only just better than I was 20 years ago, or even 10 years ago, I'm better than I was 5 years ago, 3 years ago, even 1 year ago. I'm not the same person. I've progressed because I've focused on making that progress. It says, people with a fixed mindset have an utter lack of imagination about themselves. Due to their lack of confidence, people with a fixed mindset have a fragile identity, relentlessly avoiding any forms of failure. And this is very true. I experienced this for a number of years, where I did not have any confidence in myself. And therefore, without that confidence, I was doing my best to avoid failure. Anytime there was something difficult or hard, I would avoid it at all costs, because I was just too afraid of what was going to happen and that I may fail. And so as a result, I was avoiding becoming my future self. Now, I'm less afraid. I put fear to the side, and I have a very active imagination as to where I want to be. So my future self is definitely not what I originally expected, but it's better than what I expected. I'm imagining myself better than I am today. The last one I want to share is, success is achieved by being true to your future self and nothing else. An interesting story he shares in the book is one of Adolf Hitler. And whether you knew this or not, Hitler wanted to be an artist, but he failed an exam to enter the Academy of Fine Arts, Vienna. He was rejected, and as a result of that rejection, he was never able to deal with it and the failure that came with it, and he didn't have the proper mental pathways to help him see that there were other ways to accomplish what he wanted to do. And so, of course, he went down another path. Very sad. We wish he hadn't done that. It would have been better if he'd been an artist, but unfortunately, Hitler was Hitler because he did not have the vision to see another way to be an artist. He was very rigid in his thinking, and that is a truth about ourselves, that sometimes we're very rigid in our thinking where we can't see other possibilities. In the book, it says here, philosopher Derek Sivers believes that you are not truly successful unless you are true to what you genuinely want or believe, regardless of how accomplished you are. It is that genuine belief in what we want to be that will drive our future selves. It is that when we are so set on achieving that goal that we have for ourselves, and that we'll find any path to get to that is when we're living our future selves. That means we are determined to become a future version of ourselves that's going to be greater and better than who we are now. And that is awesome. It is an amazing feeling, folks. Ben then covers the steps towards becoming your future self. And I actually do want to break these down, these 7 here really quick. But first, he does share a story about Steve Jobs. And I have a great respect for Steve Jobs. I've followed him since I was a kid, the creator of Apple computers. And, I was a huge Apple computer fan when I was a kid. Of course, he was fired from his own company and went on to create the next computer, as well as to start Pixar, and was involved in a variety of the first 15 years of films for Pixar. But the interesting thing about Steve Jobs is he got rehired back at Apple, as many of you know, in the late 90s. And when he came on board, Apple had so many different models of computers. He asked the question, what does each one do? And nobody could answer the question. So he scrapped all of those, and then he narrowed it down to a select few items. And then what he did is he made specific items beyond that, just focused on little things at a time. But he had a visionary future self goal for Apple. So what happened is the iMac. Then you had the iPod. Then you had the iPhone. Then you had the iPad. He focused on one thing at a time and released them one at a time. And as those progressed, they just became more and more amazing as that went on. So he had a future self in mind for Apple, and he's a great example for how to think futuristically of how to do something, and how to have a goal and to accomplish it and to move forward to the next goal. You're never done. You're always moving to the next one. So the first one that Ben Hardy shares in the book is clarify your contextual purpose. Here, this is where you're going to connect with your long-term future self. You've got to, in your mind, start thinking about who you are. And in order to do that, you're going to need to clarify your three major priorities. No more than three, because if you have more than three priorities, you have no priorities at all. You need to be able to also set massive 12-month targets based on these three priorities. And I like to also say, make it 3-month priorities. May even come down to a week. Start with a day. Start small and work up big, but have targets that you expect to have these goals, these priorities completed and set by those dates. Having long-term goals is a must, but also have some short ones in there too. Eliminate lesser goals is number 2. So ask this question of yourself whenever you're looking at a goal. Is this taking me toward my objective? Is this the most effective thing I can do? Is looking at your phone, at social media, an effective way of reaching your goal? Probably not. Drop the lesser goal. It's not really a goal, but it's something that's distracting you. But smaller goals that you have that are not in line with those three priorities that you have for your future self, they need to go to the back burner. They need to be set aside. They're not going to get you to your future self. So take those lesser goals and eliminate them. Focus on your top 3. This was a complex topic, this third one. Elevate from needing to wanting to knowing. So I'll break this down. This is how the book puts it. Needing implies you're in a deep state of lack and can't be whole or happy until the need is filled. And then it goes into talking about wanting. Wanting is healthier than needing, but still a state of lack. It assumes you still don't possess what you want. The final stage is knowing, is accepting that you already have what you want. You live in a state of acceptance, peace, and gratitude. And to quote the book, when you know something is yours, you act differently than if you don't know. So if I know that I am going to be on stage, there's no need for me to need or want that, because I know I'm going to be on stage speaking. I don't need to finish my book. I don't want to finish my book. I know that I will finish my book. I know it's going to be completed. So I have no doubts in my mind that this is going to happen. So there's a big difference in knowing that I'm going to complete it. I think differently than I need to or I want to. Knowing means it's going to happen in my book. Ask for exactly what you want. This one is, I look at this as this is a step of courage. We need to always ask for what we want. I tell my kids this, go ask, because what's the worst thing they could say? No. Don't be afraid to ask for something that you think they may or may not give you. You might be surprised. People can be very generous. There is no harm in asking. Always ask for what you want. So the next one is automate and systemize your future self. You want to automate the things in your life that will help you to free up your conscious mind to focus, to play and plan. For example, if one of your goals is to save money, to save or to invest, then set up an automated system to take a little bit of money and put that away, put that aside on a regular basis so you don't have to think about it. It's just done. Find little things like that don't require you to always have a conscious, focused effort on it. Have your bills get paid on a regular basis on auto pay, things of that nature. Find a way to automate and systemize your life such that your life can then, your conscious self can focus on those 3 priorities that you need to get out the door. Also, schedule your future self. You need to be able to schedule the time you're going to spend on your 3 priorities. If you don't actually carve out the time for your priorities, they'll never happen. Don't let your schedule control you. Take control of your schedule. This allows you, believe it or not, to have free time. A little bit of freedom of time to do things that may not be in your priority list. If you're able to carve out like for me, I'll carve out a couple of hours for writing, a few nights a week so that I can spend that time there, but I also am able to free up time to do other things that are important as well. Spend time with family or go to a movie or do whatever I need to do. You prioritize what matters most towards your future self goals. And you're preventing the lesser goals that you're trying to eliminate from stomping on your primary goals. And then finally, you want to aggressively complete imperfect work. I got to tell you, this is one of the areas where I have a lot of trouble myself because I am a perfectionist. And this podcast will be an example for you. This is my 3rd take. It's taken 3 times for me to get this done and out the door. And granted, I actually screwed up on the video a couple of times where I really had to do it. But for the most part, sometimes I am so much of a perfectionist, it holds me up that I am not getting the job done. I'm not getting it pushed out on a timely basis because I'm trying to make it perfect. Move out of paralysis by analysis mode when completing your work. Accept the imperfections. And as Dan Sullivan will say, done is better than perfect. If it's done, ship it. Get it out the door. Anyway, I love this book. Be Your Future Self Now is the epitome of everything I've tried to do for the last 4 years with Every Damn Day. It was really about 6 to 9 months after I started Every Damn Day when I grew beyond the physical and got into the mental space where I really wanted to be better mentally. And that's when I encountered Ben Hardy for the first time and started learning more about what he had to say, in particular about focusing on your future self and writing out plans for where you wanted to be in the future. And I wrote out a plan that takes me to 2023. And I'm off target with some of that, but there are some things. The book is one thing that is still in there that I am actually going to hope complete by the end of 2023. I'm on target to do that. And I've been thinking about that for the last almost 3 years now. So this is me living my future self now. And it is so important, such an important part of Every Damn Day living, that we must think about who we're going to be because it drives us. It makes us become better than we are now. And it helps just benefit our mindset. It benefits our spiritual, emotional being, and physically, as long as we're always physically trying to work on ourselves in every damn day, trying to get stronger every day. And that's working towards our future self as well, because we want to live a long, healthy life. So we're lifting weights, we're running, we're being healthy so that we can get another 5 or 10 years, so that we have a future self that is going to be able to have the physical body to maintain the mental and the spiritual side of things, all of that trifecta working together. Read Be Your Future Self now if you haven't, folks. You will get a lot out of this book. Thank you so much for coming this week to another Every Damn Week podcast. We'll see you next week.